Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome! Today, we're going to talk about role-playing games in today's episode of RPGaDay, Day 9, Inspire for RPGaDay 2025. And I thought that today I would, as a change of pace, bring out some of my inspirational literature that I have collected. I haven't read all of this. Some of this is for inspired reading down the road. Some of it is stuff that I have read. Some of it is less inspiration and more source material that I plan on tapping for various games. As we go through it, you'll understand why it's a pile. But I think it's only fair to understand my philosophy on inspiration. And that is borrow from everything. There's almost nothing that's out there that you've ever encountered that you can't somehow steal. Every person you've ever met could be fuel for an NPC. Every movie you've ever seen might have had a catchphrase or a plot twist or something that caught your eye that you can purloin for your game, or take and modify, of course. And that is ultimately the soul of creativity. It's been said that there's nothing new under the sun, and that everything that we have is derivative from something we've already experienced. But hey, if that's the case, you've probably seen an amazing amount of things. And therefore, borrowing from it just makes you look like a genius. So, effectively doing that can be very, very useful. And I'm going to start out real easy. This is pretty simple to see exactly how this is useful. And also, almost all of this, thrift store buys. I bought very few of these things for full price, that's for sure. So the first thing is from Brain Games, Criminal Mind Puzzles. And this is straight up resource. This is the kind of thing that has variety of situations where the players find something, and then from that they try to discover guilt, innocence, what is going on in a given situation. Capturing visual clues, deductive reasoning, interpretation. Those are important criminal elements, and those are things that, if I'm going to run a murder mystery, having something like this to set up things for my players could lead to something really memorable for them. So that's a whole book full of such things, although, admittedly, many of them follow the same line. They are puzzles more than anything, and as a result, one may be very similar to another one somewhere else in the series. So that's useful. Then we have Stephen King's Dark Tower. Now, I don't read a ton of Stephen King, but I have always had people tell me, ever since The Dark Tower came out, they're like, Rob, you really should read this. It's a really good book about some things that you're interested in, and I've always kind of put it off. But I recently did find it in a bookstore, in a graphic novel, so it shouldn't take very long to get through. And ultimately, if I really do like it, I'll go back and I'll read the book, because, that's important, I think. Mr. King does have a real talent for writing in a way that, it's evocative. He's good at evoking certain things. He's good at glossing over things that are minutiae. His stuff is relatively concise. I mean, if you read Hemingway, it's the ultimate in conciseness. But if you read, like, Tolkien, some of his literature, his prose is a little florid. So, the happy medium is, I think, Stephen King. He wrote fairly effectively. About on the same level, I personally think, as J.K. Rowling's with her Harry Potter series. In some cases, all of the detail that you'd want to put yourself in a given situation to explain the mindset of the characters. But in other avenues, also an ability to tone it back when great detail isn't needed. So I respect that. So we'll see how the graphic novel is, and then maybe I'll get a new series of books. That's easy. Games. This is a compilation from Games Magazine. Some of which of those were really, really good. Now, granted, a lot of these I'm not going to really probably be able to use in a role-playing game. Some of them are just fun. Like, I do like what they call wordies. I can't remember the actual term. But these kind of puzzles, I personally like them. And can you figure this one out? You probably can, but this is The Plot Thickens. Pretty simple. And there's a whole book full of different puzzles, some of which I just want to do for myself. Sure. Some of them, though, I might very well be able to pull some of these out for games. Even if they're groaners, sometimes you got to have those too. There's nothing wrong with that. So, again, something I just found and thought, maybe I can use that. At the very least, it should be entertaining for me. Next. This is something I recently got at Half Price Books. Mythological puzzles. These are puzzles that are based on mostly Greek mythology. Greek and Roman. And also out of their legends. So, well, what is my playground for role-playing games other than mythology? Well, there are a lot, but mythology is a big one for me. So being able to tap into something like that, be able to lift things like that into puzzles that might challenge my players without making it obvious that I'm springing a puzzle on them, could be really useful. Sometimes reading another writer's fiction can be incredibly useful. This is a book by Tiffany Rose Nickel. This is Light of Evanora. Tiffany writes about her characters in her role-playing game. So this is almost a autobiographical, except it's of her characters and the party shenanigans that she turned into novels, which is excellent. I think a lot of players would love to do that. Well, she did it, and that's the thing. You got to put in the work. And that is important. Another favorite writer of mine, whose works have inspired me, certainly no small amount, Terry Brooks. This is Armageddon's Children, which I haven't gotten into yet, but of course he is the guy who did the Shannara series, which I loved, especially the first three. Sword of Shannara, Elfstone of Shannara, and Wish Song of Shannara were excellent books. Yeah, some of the other ones started drifting off into different areas that I thought were, maybe not as, I don't know, they kind of lost me a little bit, but I always respected his writing. I thought he was really a good writer, especially when it encapsulated a story within a single book, without needing to have series of books to tell an entire story. That's actually kind of admirable. There's a lot of writers who can't do that. And there are some writers who probably should have learned how to do that, George Martin. Because your fans are eternally frustrated. So, let's see. Oh, here we go. A little whimsical. Gravity Falls. Now, Gravity Falls, brilliantly written. It was a Disney cartoon, yes, but there was so much packed into Gravity Falls that they came out with books explaining more of the meta lore behind it, so you could try to understand the deeper reasoning in those shows. And it was a total mind trip. There are people who have long-form videos explaining some of the details of Gravity Falls. And this is just a comic. It's entertaining. There's at least a couple of good lore bits in here, though. And, yep, absolutely. I wish sometimes that I could write things as intricate and involved. But, will my players ever enjoy that? Will they ever figure it out? Will they want to? That's always the question I ask myself. Another of my favorite writers, and again, an inspiration to me continuously, which is Terry Pratchett. Now, Terry Pratchett, amazing author. Wonderful author. For fantasy, but working in such wonderful comedy, and British comedy too. If you don't appreciate British comedy, it can be a little harder. But the humor is just so thick and deep in it. Every single thing, the most offhanded comment that he writes is hilarious to some people. I'm one of those people, though. So I love the stories of Rincewind and just all the various characters. Grime, my gosh, I'm way too tired. But yeah, all the wonderful characters that he comes up with, and the stories, and the who comes up with the idea of the entire disc-shaped world balanced on the backs of 4 elephants who are themselves riding on a giant space turtle. Just madness. The way magic works in his world, madness. But it works. It all works out and is endlessly entertaining. And I dearly love Terry Pratchett's work. So, that's something I wanted to show you. And you might ask, which books are the best? They're all great. I do recommend starting at the very beginning, The Color of Magic. Excellent book. But you can jump in just about anywhere, and they are all, even though they're interconnected with several of the characters. Grimes. Oh, that was a Walking Dead thing. Vimes. Sam Vimes, the head constable of Ankh-Morpork. I'll get there eventually. Okay. Cursed Castle. This is something I picked up. It promises to be an escape room in a book. And I thought, what are escape rooms but lots of individual riddles and puzzles and such? This one has mazes and things like that, which I don't find particularly useful. I find mazes primarily frustrate players. I have yet to find a player who has ever gushed about a maze that their character had to go through. So I don't use them very often. I prefer to use a series of encounters, giving players branching choices perhaps, but ultimately I stay away from mazes. I normally don't drink on these videos, but this is going to be a longer video, so I'm going to do it. Politically correct bedtime stories. These are funny. They are, of course, the idea of a bedtime story told in the most politically correct fashion, to the point where they are rendered ludicrous. And often with an offhanded, almost cruel sense of humor, almost Grimm's-worthy, Brothers Grimm-worthy cruelty of describing things. It reminds me, and I've enjoyed reading this for some of my personal videos, but it reminds me that by just changing your perspective, your point of view a little bit, skewing it just enough, you can really make things seem different to a tone that you're looking for. For example, if you talk with the characters, surrounded by, say, goblins, after a while, they might start seeing the goblinish perspective a little bit more clearly when they are beating their heads against all of the idiosyncrasies of goblin culture, and at least my goblin's culture, which is rather frenetic, grabbed together by all of the different races that they've come upon, and, just thrown in the players' faces. How to Solve a Murder. Yes, I have a lot of these books. Yes, any single one of these. How many? How many of these are there? 70. 70 different potential murder mysteries with clues that I could throw to my players. I mean, this makes things like that really relatively easy. So people who have a hard time understanding how to set up a mystery, well, you often start out with a central clue that will lead players into more things. And these are clues that you can use to make your brains kind of run a little bit, trying to figure things out. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. More inspirational reading. R.A. Salvatore. This is Demon Wars. This was Trial. This isn't the full graphic novel or anything. But it, again, if you want to be a good writer, read good written work. R.A. Salvatore is responsible for a lot of the dominance of the Forgotten Realms in Dungeons & Dragons. His works, revolving around Drizzt and his friends, are a huge, huge influence on why Wizards of the Coast decided to go that way. When they had all of Greyhawk to borrow from, they could have used that easily. But no, they chose Ed Greenwood's Love Child, and all the people who have written and contributed to it, again, R.A. Salvatore is one of them. And, yeah, I respect his work, and I don't mind borrowing his own ideas as well. Another shout out to a local author. This wasn't one that I really intended to use for inspiration as much. This is from local author Ben Wolf, and the book is It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Raptors. It's about Santa Claus fighting against a variety of mad threats, bloody duels and such. The very first book, one of his reindeer goes bad and kills most of his other reindeer, so it's pretty dark stuff. Because I am endlessly curious about the personalities of role-playing games, this is David Kushner's Rise of the Dungeon Master about Gary Gygax. It's a graphic novel about Gary Gygax and how he kind of came along to create Dungeons & Dragons. And notice that it's Gary Gygax in the creation of Dungeons & Dragons. It's not about Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. You find that a lot. Generally, writers pretty much pigeonhole things, and the works of the contributions of David Arneson are often overwhelmed by the hurricane force of Gary Gygax. But not forgotten. Not truly forgotten. The Discworld Almanac. I do want to run an adventure in Discworld. I really do. And something like this, absolutely essential. This has all kinds of things about the world of Discworld, including an almanac. So weather patterns, creatures, anecdotes, all kinds of useful stuff. It's a great read anyhow. But if you're going to run Discworld and you want to know just how mad that world is, that's useful. Another book, again, great resource material. And this is Forgotten Realms of Waterdeep. Now, I am running an adventure in Waterdeep, so I thought reading this would be of some help. It's really not. It's all about the characters primarily. Not as much about Waterdeep in general. You don't get much of a sense of the city around them. It's all about the actual story. But that's okay. It's still not a bad read. It didn't really refresh me all that much, but it's okay. A one-shot in the arm, simple campaigns from local author and friend of mine, Jerry Shepard, fantastic woman, does so much for the community of writers in the area. She's an international bestseller. Yeah, she's kind of my writing idol, which you'd think would really help me to kick myself in the butt and write more, but that hasn't happened so much. And I got 2 different copies of it because one she just gave me. Because she likes me, and I like her. Second book of Terry Pratchett's. I had a lot of Terry Pratchett in here, and I'm just being honest with what I'm showing you. The Light Fantastic. This is the second book in the Discworld series. I have The Color of Magic upstairs, which is the first, and I'm all ready for the second. Proactive Role-Playing. The Game Master's Handbook of Proactive Role-Playing. Proactive role-playing is primarily a player-forward practice. It's the idea of recognizing your character, understanding your character, and when you're role-playing, pushing for the goals and interests of your character. Not what you feel like doing that day, but keeping your character in mind at all times so that your character is represented by what you direct, rather than just what seems expedient or, that's the soul of that role-playing stuff we talk about a lot. But a lot of people don't do that. Their characters are only as deep as moving from point A to point B and casting spells and fighting and whatever. This means a more deep immersion for you and your character, and making sure your character's voice is heard, that they're actively a participant in the adventure, not just a back row character that doesn't say much, doesn't do much, doesn't influence the story hardly at all. This would help, and I highly recommend that book. I don't recommend necessarily all of those Game Master's Guide books, that there are many of them. I don't find all of them all that useful. Many of them are just charts and tables, and they can be handy, but I don't think they're compelling. That book, quite compelling. I think that anybody who plays role-playing games probably should take that one. Give it a good look. You may already do a lot of that stuff, and I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying that, yeah, it's a good practice. All right, source material is often a good read. I am getting ready for a little bit of horror, so I have the complete H.P. Lovecraft. Oh, yes. That's a thick book. There is a lot, but it has all the classics. All the things to make your players sweat. If they know you've got this ammunition, and you're sitting there with a box that says Call of Cthulhu on it, yeah, this will be good. I've already read excerpts out of this, or out of Lovecraft stuff. I want to get down into the core of his writing about madness, about strange creatures from other realms, and exactly how the characters run into them and have their dealings, because that will help me a lot in maintaining the mood and the atmosphere that I'm looking for in my games. So we'll see how well it helps, but honestly, again, source materials, not bad. Not bad to have. Especially if you're not afraid of a little reading. We have another Jerry Shepard book, Faulted Reasoning. I like Jerry. And what I really value of her writing is she's really, really good at characterization. Making her characters live and breathe. Pretty nice stuff. So, escape room logic puzzles. These, again, incredibly useful for dungeons. Escape room. Yes, you're going to have your players try to escape or get out from things or progress into the dungeon. This is just too handy to have, honestly. Yeah, some of them are not going to be all that useful. I got you there. But some of them will. And the fact that I can purloin these things and make something of it, priceless. And again, this was all thrift store, so it cost me next to nothing. This was a mistake, but I don't mind sharing it. This is Ouroboros, Coils of the Serpent, Under the Sun. I thought this would be a kind of a cool role-playing game supplement. A cool world and stuff, and it's not. It's not terrible. The writing isn't bad. Just from a role-playing standpoint, this isn't a world that I want to really role-play in or explore all that particular much. But I got it for pretty cheap at half-price books, where they've got a billion of them. This was made by Warchief Gaming, which really made me think, role-playing game. And I guess they do have a role-playing game supplement. I think it's in 5th edition. But I got this, started looking through this, and I'm like, okay, it's a kind of a fantasy world, but nothing different from anything else that I have that I really get all that excited about. So yeah. And then finally, again, I'm really interested in low magic medieval settings. I think those kind of settings are cool. That's why I like Warhammer. That's why I like the idea of Zweihander. Warhammer, Zweihander. There's some really good books out there that do low fantasy. Well, so I got Daily Life in Medieval Times. Now, realistically, this is my son's book. And he'll probably enjoy it tremendously because he loves history. And he has been devouring some very complex books for kids his age. There's not a lot of kids who read about Che Guevara, not ironically and to be edgy. He's genuinely curious. He just got done with this huge book on the dictator of Korea. So, and his father. So the whole Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il family thing. So he wanted that, and I'm glad he got it. But now I have it. Why do I have it? Because I want to learn how to make fantasy real. I want to learn how life really was, the climate, the expectations, the life, and research is how you do that. There aren't going to be a lot of movies that you're going to watch that are really going to give a fair representation of what life was like for your average person in medieval times. You need to go and find books like this one and read, probably from several source resources, to get a composite view and get a more complete view of what that was like. There are some YouTube channels that help, sure. There's a number of them. I'm amused by Tasting History, because that's got food and history together, which is kind of cool. And a lot of research gets done in that video series, but there's others. And again, if I want information, I really want to be faithful and flavorful for a particular time, then I'll go and do something like that. So, those are some of the writings that I've been looking to for inspiration. These are the kind of things I find to be helpful. If you yourself have a source or a variety of sources that you find useful, feel free to leave in the comments. We'd love to know about them. I'd love to know about them because, like I said, we all borrow. And I'd love to borrow from what works for you. If you want to borrow what works for me, here you go. And I'm just going to say again, all these things that I have were found at thrift stores. Goodwill, St. Vincent de Paul, again, half-price books. But it didn't cost a lot, and they gave me a pretty good library of things that I can borrow, read, learn, and excel in my craft of gaming. So, I hope this inspires you to find a few things that will help. A great gamer is a reader. And that is the best advice that I can give to anybody looking to get into gaming or who's frustrated with gaming. Read. Read more things. Get inspired. Get excited. Hopefully with that, you'll become a greater gamer. So, I hope you liked that. Of course, if you did, you can go ahead and like, subscribe, share, notify yourself that I do these videos. That'd be great. I really would love to see you again because I've got more videos to do. So, hopefully, I will be seeing you again, and when I do, I hope that between then and now that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun, but stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.